Hey, how's it going, friends? Thank you for tuning in to VR Revelations. It is March 22, and a horrible terrorist attack just took place in Russia. So let's jump right into the news. This was a historical terrorist attack, one of the worst uh, terrorist attacks in Russia in modern history. According to reports, there's over 40 people dead. Some are giving the estimate that it's over 70 and dozens of others injured. Now, most of the information that I've gathered here is from RT, which is a Russian news source. And so apparently this attack took place in the Moscow Concert Hall, which is a music venue just outside of Moscow. According to reports, around it was around five gunmen that carried out this terrorist attack. They entered the building and they killed the security guards who were unarmed, and then after that they blocked the entrances. They proceeded to head to the music hall, which looks sort of like one of those theaters where you can watch a play, and they pretty much went on a shooting spree. There's videos all over social media, so I would advise, precaution when watching these things, as it's images that are difficult to see. And so these terrorists entered this uh, music venue and they started shooting people. They had semi automatic weapons. It looks like they were carrying military gear as well. Again, according to reports, it was around five gunmen. We really don't have any information from the government as of yet concerning uh, arrests or who these terrorists are. Um, they also apparently set fire to the chairs in the music venue in the concert hall, and those flames reached the rooftop, which in a lot of the videos right now circulating social media, you can see that the building, the roof was on fire. You can see that helicopters were flying over. Firefighters were also trying to put these flames out. And so there's a lot of speculation as to who these terrorists were. And, there's a lot of foolish people out there that right away, as soon as they saw the news, you just knew they were going to write all of these American propagandists were claiming it was a false flag attack, which is, it's absolutely absurd and ridiculous to make a claim while the event is still literally developing. And you can imagine these are the same people that claimed Russia blew up its own pipeline, uh, which they also labeled as a false flag attack, right? So Russia attacking themselves to give themselves a justification uh, to do, I don't know what. They're already at war with Ukraine. What bigger justification do you need? They're already claiming Russia is looking to conquer the whole of Europe, so I don't know why Russia would consider destroying its own pipeline and carrying out an attack on its own civilians in this concert hall. So it just makes absolutely no sense. Russia doesn't need to carry out a false flag attack when the Ukrainians have been attacking the civilian population since literally the war started. Um, they already have plenty of excuses. They have had plenty of excuses to escalate the war, and they haven't. When the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up, supposedly the West was claiming, or all of these Western propagandists were claiming, that it was Russia. We now know it wasn't Russia, that it was the U.S. Um, and they were claiming that Russia blew up its own pipeline in order to give themselves a justification to escalate the war, which they never did. Vladimir Putin, the Russian government, actually were very temperate, very cool headed after the attack because they don't want to escalate the war. So, why would a government carry out a false flag to not use it as a justification to escalate? It just makes no sense. And they're already in a state of war. They already declare that, they're facing an existential threat to their country. They already said that they aren't just facing Ukraine, they're facing the whole of NATO, which obviously they are, since we know NATO is supporting Ukraine. That's the only reason Ukraine has lasted over 2 years. And so Russia doesn't need any further justification. As a matter of fact, they've been given a lot of opportunities to act out of hand, to escalate the situation, but they've held back. And partly, or actually the biggest reason, is because Putin has been so adamant about not escalating this into a World War III scenario that could end the whole of civilization. So I don't expect a major retaliation for this terrorist attack. I do expect, the Russian government to seek out these terrorists and to carry out an investigation as to who they worked for. And of course, the most obvious conclusion for anybody that has been following this war is that it was Ukraine, right? They're literally at war right now with Ukraine. They're involved in a conflict against Ukraine and NATO, who is backing Ukraine. Ukraine has been sending drones to attack Moscow. They literally attacked the Kremlin. They've attacked, buildings there at the capital. They've carried out car bombings, incursions into Belgorod. So, this isn't shocking to say it's Ukraine. They're literally at war. So who else would it be if not the country you're at war with, right? The U.S. immediately came out and started spreading these rumors that ISIS came out of nowhere, that apparently they have this, they have it out against Russia, which is absolutely absurd. They might as well, have claimed that it was Osama bin Laden that carried out the attack. And so it's just absolute nonsense. The most obvious conclusion is that it was Ukraine who carried out the attack. And if not, Russian dissidents who are backed by Ukraine, but more than likely it was Ukraine, and possibly by backing and coordination with, the CIA or these other foreign organizations that are supporting Ukraine and its war effort against Russia. And so this is absolutely catastrophic. Again, over 40 people dead. Some reports are saying 70. By tomorrow, we could well be over 100. There's children that were injured, and so I will definitely be praying for those that are fighting for their lives right now. And this wasn't an amateur attack. This wasn't just some random mass shooting like you often see in the U.S. This was 5 gunmen, according to reports. They were well armed. They had military gear. They planned this out, and they knew what they were doing. They wanted to send a message, and they wanted to create fear in the Russian people. And so, they've definitely achieved their goal, but it's not gonna make the people ask Putin to stop the war. On the contrary, they're going to seek retaliation, right? They're going to seek vengeance for the victims that were killed. And so, it would not make sense for Putin or his government to carry out a false flag. And Putin just won a major he just won a major victory with these elections they just had. Most of the population voted for him. Uh, he's one of the most popular leaders in the world. Um, and so, if he was to carry out any false flag, it would have been the perfect timing would have been before the election, right? Just like, in at other points in history, uh, world leaders or, men who were seeking power would carry out false flag attacks in order to give themselves ultimate power to postpone elections or to take out the opposing political parties. So it wouldn't make sense that Vladimir Putin would order or orchestrate an attack on his own people to justify himself to, uh, further his military goals after an election that he won by a landslide, right? He's already in power for 6 more years. The people already pretty much made it clear that they're behind their president, that they support him, that they want him to continue to lead the nation for 6 more years. I believe it's 6 years that they serve there, and so there's just absolutely no reason for Vladimir Putin to do these things, and it's absurd. We saw this with the Nord Stream pipeline, and they were trying to claim that it was Russia. That was quickly dispelled. And this is just another attempt to try and blame this on the Russian government when there's absolutely no benefit for them. Again, they don't need any justification. They're already in a existential war against Ukraine, against the West. But the most likely and most logical perpetrator of this terrorist attack is Ukraine, right? They're growing desperate. It's pretty clear that all hope is lost. They're begging the Western nations to join the fight. The U.S. is backtracking on its support, on its monetary support. Trump looks like he's about to win the elections, and he's already said that he's going to look to end the war. So they're growing desperate. And the very last thing that any government that is facing collapse does is to carry out terrorist attacks in order to create some sort of urgency, or to try to create chaos in the enemy's ranks to try and make them act out of character. So we could possibly see more of these type of things in the near future as Ukraine collapses, as it becomes clear that the Western nations are looking for a way out, even though Macron there in France is saying that he's not ruling out the possibility of French troops. It's absolutely absurd. As I said from the beginning of this conflict, there's absolutely no way that the Western nations, the US, France, England, all of these other nations are not willing to risk nuclear war over Ukraine. They're just trying to, make use of Ukraine to the last possible minute to inflict damage to Russia, and that was the major miscalculation from the beginning. They only strengthened Russia and weakened their own position globally. They created this major divide in the world, right, where we now have these two sides, Russia, China, and its allies, the BRICS nations, and the U.S. Now, before that, the U.S. pretty much had control of everything, but because they made these decisions to go to war against Russia, to try and break and destroy Russia economically and through its proxy war via Ukraine, it completely backfired, and now their economy is in shambles. They've lost their position on the world stage as the supreme power. militarily and economically, and now they're being embarrassed on the battlefield in Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin has completely outplayed them in each and every way, politically, strategically, on the battlefield, in the conference rooms. Putin is just on another level right now, truly, politically speaking. And so this is just another attempt to try and get Russia to, do something that's going to draw the U.S. or France or one of these nations into the conflict. But again, it doesn't matter what Russia does. Vladimir Putin is not looking to just outright destroy Ukraine. If he wanted to, he could have done that with a nuclear weapon. Okay, he could have done that with, all of the more powerful missiles that they have. But that's not his objective. He's not trying to destroy the Ukrainian people. He made it clear in the Tucker Carlson interview that he considers the Ukrainian people in Russia one people. He considers them as family, essentially, even though many of them have been brainwashed by the West, who absolutely does not care about them at all and is using them as cannon fodder. And so what is this going to do? Well, this is just going to increase the determination of Russia to finish out and seek this through steadily but surely, and destroy the Ukrainian government and the efforts of the West to destabilize Russia. And, it is possible that Russia will amp up its operations, its missile strikes. They could possibly seek out the military leadership and possibly even Zelensky. But again, I think this is just another case where it's going to backfire on the West, on Ukraine. And I think that, it's going to show the world and the Ukrainian people that there's no way of winning this war, and that their leaders are resorting to terrorist attacks, that they're growing desperate, and it's not going to give any positive results. And so I think that this is just going to put more pressure on Zelensky and his government, and his people will eventually start turning on him. I can guarantee you that. And so, a terrible terrorist attack here, guys. Just remember, the West hates Russia, okay? Russia literally just banned the LGBT movement across the nation. They labeled it as a terrorist organization. And so the West is, it's pretty much a modern Sodom and Gomorrah. And God warned us of this, that in the end of days, it would be like it was in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, I'm not saying Russia is a nation that represents, our Lord and Savior, but they are standing up for biblical values as opposed to the West. The West wants to corrupt that part of the world. They want to, bring their immorality, all of these perversions over into that part of the world, because they call it freedom. They call it liberty, right? The right to live how you want, right? So notice that even though the West is supposed to be, the Christian part of the world, in reality, they are very satanic in their deeds. They pretty much celebrate all of these sins, and they call it liberty, but clearly the Bible calls it slavery to Satan, slavery to the devil. And Jesus clearly said, by their works you shall know them. So again, my focus here with this channel is to open your eyes and see beyond the politics, beyond the physical things or events that are taking place in the world and look at it with spiritual eyes, look at it through the lens of the Bible. And as I've said before, it doesn't matter what they do against Russia. They can't defeat it. You can't defeat a modern nuclear superpower. You can't defeat these major nations with nuclear weapons. Once they really go at each other directly, face to face, we're going to be facing the end of the world via nuclear holocaust. But we're not there yet. There are still other prophecies that need to come to pass. As I've said before, God is using Russia as a tool to bring about these end time prophecies. And not just Russia. God is using the U.S., all of these nations, the whole world. He's in control, just like he was in ancient biblical times when he carried out Israel out of the land of Egypt, and he was in control of the whole situation. He uses the nations to bring about his prophecies, to show that his word is true, to show that judgment is coming upon the world, and to give us time to repent and to turn to God, to turn away from evil and from darkness and from sin before the world literally burns, just as it was prophesied in the Bible in the book of Second of Peter, chapter 3, I believe. And so, you're going to continue to see this great divide, right? The U.S., its allies versus Russia and China, and it's just going to continue to build up until eventually it does culminate in a World War III, in a nuclear conflict, which will be the fulfillment of end-time prophecy, right? Of the world being purged by fire, right? And at that time, it won't just be nuclear weapons. It's going to be volcanoes and earthquakes and everything. But the U.S. has a major part to play, a major part to play in these end times. And so everything they're doing against Russia is working into that, even though these people in power don't realize it or don't believe in the Bible. They're actually fulfilling biblical prophecy. And so a terrible attack here. I don't expect Russia to act out of character. I don't expect them to, escalate the war in a major way or anything like that. I believe they will escalate, become more accurate, more intolerant in the operations they are already carrying out. I think it's not going to be good for Zelensky. It can't be good. Everything that is sown must be reaped. But anyways, guys, don't get caught up in all of the nonsense propaganda, false flag, and all of this nonsense. Clearly, Russia is at war. The world is witnessing a war which we haven't seen literally since World War II right now. And it's pretty clear that the most obvious perpetrator of this act was Ukraine. And so we'll have to see what the conclusion is of the Russian government's investigation into this matter. But I think they're going to come to the conclusion that it was probably Ukraine, probably the same people that carried out the Nord Stream pipeline attack. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Stay safe, draw close to God, and remember, the truth is stranger than fiction. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day.